What? No!
Emphasizing dodging and parrying just as reading the rhythm.
Hellblade 2 looks absolutely spectacular, and obviously this pisses off PlayStation fanboys, so they have to do the same thing they do every time an Xbox game releases, or is close to releasing, or is announced, or just exists, you know. They have to make the game look, or try to make the game look as bad as possible, even though it might make them look like hypocrites or whatever. That doesn't matter. As long as the game somehow looks bad, they're gonna try and like use it to make the game as unattractive as possible. So without further ado, let's just get right into the salty PlayStation fanboy tweets.
5-hour walking sim with almost no combat. No one cares.
Isn't that literally every single PlayStation game though? Like, I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but most PlayStation games aren't that long, not longer than 12 hours. And they're also all like walking simulators, dude. You're perfectly describing what I felt like when playing The Last of Us. I was just walking around for a couple hours, moving ladders, and every now and then I got to shoot a guy. But usually I just walked around and moved ladders.
And Starfield is the game of the generation.
So this tweet is obviously in response to people saying that Hellblade 2 is the best looking game of this generation and subsequently, you know, of all time. PlayStation fanboys are obviously coping and seething about that, but it's just fact. I'm sorry, it's not the same as saying that Starfield is the game of the generation, because you don't know how good a game like Starfield is before it comes out. Hellblade 2, you can just look at trailers and see that it's the best looking game of all time, because it is. I've never seen a game that looks as good as Hellblade 2, neither have you, and if you are just talking yourself into the fact that this game looks bad and Last of Us 2 or whatever looks better, you're lying to yourself, you're coping, you're seething.
Hellblade 2 will be a cinematic walking simulator running at 30 FPS at dynamic resolution that will be 3 to 4 hours long. It's the ultimate movie game, which is ironic considering how Xbox fanboys claim they hate movie games.
Now there's a lot to unpack here, but I want to start by saying that it's completely unacceptable for a game in 2024 to be locked at 30 FPS, just in general, right? But I can understand it because Hellblade 2 is such a demanding game that it's not gonna run at 60 FPS plus on a fucking Xbox or on a PS5 for that matter. If you want to play this game at a frames per second rate higher than 60 or higher than 30 even, you're gonna have to play this game on a PC. Now, secondly, this game, a lot of people are saying it's 3 to 4 hours long. The previous tweet I covered in this video said it's 5 hours long. The game is going to be 8 hours long according to the developers, right? If the game comes out and turns out to be shorter than that, you can say that it's shorter than that. But an average playthrough, according to developers, will be 8 hours long. So don't spread misinformation for no reason. Now when it comes to calling Hellblade 2 a movie game, I find it a bit odd because movie games, to me at least, are games like Uncharted or The Last of Us, where it's literally just a movie, where the game is just a movie but you play the action scenes and most of like the dialogue is just shown in cinematic cutscenes that are shot in the same way as a movie. Hellblade 2 isn't the same as that, at least Hellblade 1 wasn't. I'm assuming Hellblade 2 won't be either, because it's telling its linear story through methods that can only be achieved in the gaming medium. For example, by having the voices that Senua hears in her head actually like play in your headset. It's shit like that. So comparing it to like cinematic movie games like Uncharted or Last of Us is just not fair because it's very, very different than those games. Yes, the game is linear and telling a story and can be somewhat cinematic, I guess, but it's telling its story in a way that only a video game could tell a linear cinematic story, while Uncharted, for example, is telling its linear cinematic movie story in the same way a movie would do it.
So in conclusion, 30 FPS for Hellblade 2 makes sense with the game's more cinematic nature, but only on Xbox consoles.
But PlayStation fanboys do this exact same thing. Like, I know that you're trying to like point out the hypocrisy in Xbox fanboys for saying that 30 FPS is bad, except for when it is a game on Xbox that's 30 FPS, and you're right, Xbox fanboys do that. But PlayStation fanboys do the exact same thing. You are doing the same thing right now. You're criticizing Hellblade 2 for being 30 FPS, but when Helldivers 2 comes out on PS5 30 FPS, or Dragon Dogmas 2 comes out 30 FPS on PlayStation, you don't say shit. That's perfectly fine, right? But when an Xbox game is 30 FPS, you immediately criticize it. In this tweet, you're literally being hypocritical about other people being hypocritical.
Me playing Xbox games at 60 FPS plus on my PlayStation, while Xbots defend 24 to 30 FPS and term it cinematic.
Classic J-Dub tweet. First of all, the game is 30 FPS. I don't know where you got the 24 to 30 FPS from. Maybe that's a different game. I don't know. I don't really care. The thing is, like I said before, PlayStation fanboys do the exact same thing when a game on their console is locked at 30 FPS. They call it cinematic and claim that it's not a big deal and that everybody else needs to shut the fuck up. Also, the Xbox games that you're playing at 60 frames per second plus on your PlayStation also run at 60 FPS plus on Xbox. Like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves. Two games that aren't very hard to run because of their cartoony art style. It's a great art style. They look good. Very good looking games. But they're nowhere near the level of detail as Hellblade 2 is. No game really is, right? So to sit there and go like, oh, Hellblade 2 only runs at 30 FPS on Xbox, while Sea of Thieves runs at 60 to 120 FPS on my PS5 is completely disingenuous, because it's two completely different games that run differently, because one of them is very, very hard to run and the other one isn't really, because it's an Xbox One game with a cartoony art style, right? That also runs at 60 FPS plus on basically every platform it's on. But I wouldn't have expected anything else from J-Dub, the absolute smartest PlayStation fanboy.
Hellblade 2 will be a below-average walking simulator with trash combat and a boring story. There is a reason Microsoft ain't wasting its money on marketing that 5-hour-long game. This is a fact, and deep down, Xbots know it.
My guy started off his tweet by describing literally every PlayStation game. No, again, I'm joking, but it's basically a perfect description of what The Last of Us and Uncharted are. You know, below average walking simulators with trash combat and a boring story. Also, how does he know this? The game isn't even out yet. How do you know what the story is? How do you know that combat is trash? And also the whole thing about like, oh, Microsoft isn't even wasting any money on the marketing. It's like, it's a pretty niche game and it's marketed enough to the point where everybody who's interested in buying it already knows of its existence. But I don't know, act retarded, I guess. Cope with the fact that this is the best looking game this generation up until this point. Nothing on PlayStation even looks anywhere near this level of good. So yeah, nah, just have fun with that knowledge. Deep down, you know that, okay? Anyway, I think I'm gonna end the video here. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.